Well, it's December, so that means we're in the dead of winter. Wait, no, actually, it's July, so that means we're in the middle of the summer. Yeah, like right there, right out that window that you can't actually see because my apartment's a little bit messy, but right out that window, it's like 35 degrees Celsius right now, and it's 1 in the morning. So in honor of this hot weather that we're experiencing, at least where I am, I'm gonna be going over 10 hidden gems for summer. This one, guys, is a list you're not gonna wanna miss. Hey guys, welcome back to Real Scent Review. Tonight I'm going to be going over 10 hot weather fragrances, at least fragrances that I think work really well in the hot weather. Everything is subjective after all. And these ones here, except for maybe one or two, are going to be relatively unknown, at least now. Back when some of these came out, they might have been a little bit more popular than they are now. But like I said, nowadays, these ones are a little bit under the radar, let's say. And by the way, these are in no particular order, except for the number one spot. The number one fragrance on this list is my absolute favorite fragrance of all time, but until then, we have 9 to go. So starting off at number 10, we have from all the way back in 1999, Carolina Herrera's 212 Men. This one brings back so many childhood memories for me. I mean, back in 1999, I was only 4 years old, but in the mid-2000s, I was about 10 years old, and I remember I used to play road hockey with a group of guys who were far older than I was. I remember smelling this fragrance everywhere. Those guys would always wear this fragrance. I remember getting off the school bus and stuff and just getting wafts of this, even all the way down the street. And of course, back then, I didn't appreciate fragrances. All I thought was, that smells good. And anyway, it wasn't until about 15 years later that I got my hands on a bottle of this and I smelled it and immediately I just bought it. I bought it at a physical retail location, which I almost never do, but I bought this because on the first sniff, it just brought me back to my childhood, right? I don't know about you guys, but for me, my childhood was like a lot less to worry about than there is now, right? Anyway, so I picked this one up. But anyway, getting into the actual note description of this one, there are a lot of notes according to the official note breakdown, but the most prominent notes you're gonna get out of this one are green grass, juniper berry, some tea, and some musk. So this one here opens up with green grass, very freshly cut green grass, and it's mixed with an effervescent juniper berry note. Now, if you've ever smelled gin, the alcoholic beverage, that jumpiness, that effervescence, that slight citric note that you smell, usually that's coming from the juniper berry, and I definitely get that in this. So the opening very fresh, but in a green sort of aromatic way. And this dries down with some tea and some musk. So the tea note is definitely prominent to my nose. The tea adds a little bit of a floral herbaceousness to it, and it dries down with some nice fuzzy musk, some fuzzy, warm, yet clean musk. This one here might feel a little bit old school, not in an old man aftershave type of way, just very late 90s green aromatic fragrance, you know what I mean? There's a lot of notes jumbled together, but it is done in a youthful way. But I have a feeling you guys, if you've ever smelled this, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. The performance on this is great. I get like 2 hours projection when I put this on. Total longevity is about 7-8 hours. It's a really good performer. And the versatility, you can pretty much wear this anywhere. Although I would say it leans more casual than formal. That's Carolina Herrera 212 Men. Number 9, we have Azzaro Visit. This one here is very underrated. I mean, I think all of the ones on this list are underrated, but particularly this one. It is so inexpensive. You can have this for like right around $30 US, and the smell is just out of this world. It's mature, yet it has a slight youthfulness to it. It's fresh, but it's got real depth to it. It's just the epitome of gentlemanly, polite, and refined. So the notes in this one are gonna be pink pepper, incense, geranium, and bergamot. So it starts off very peppery, somewhat spicy, but then the way the bergamot and the geranium mix together, the geranium has a little bit of mintiness and the bergamot has a very fresh, effervescent, zesty lime accord. Those two notes mixed together almost make it seem like it's going to go into blue aquatic territory, but then it doesn't. The black pepper then resurfaces, makes itself much more apparent, and it's joined by a smoky, very noticeable incense note. So that keeps it from going into blue territory, but it is still pretty fresh. Although it is deep, it's a little bit mature. This one is gonna be for the older guys out there. I can't see a lot of younger guys appreciating this one. However, if you like blue aquatic fragrances, but you're just sick of all of them and you want to get something that's just a level up from everything on the market today, get this. It will not hurt your wallet whatsoever and you will not regret it. So the performance on this one, it's on the lighter side of things. I get maybe an hour of projection and the total longevity, you know, 5, 6, 7 hours. It's not the strongest performer, but then again, you don't need it to be. This one here really wins in the elegance and refinement department. So that's Azzaro. Visit, guys, one you're not gonna wanna miss. At number 8, we have L'Homme by Rocha. So I've recently done a comparison video between this and Dolce & Gabbana's K Eau de Toilette. A lot of people think that these two smell similar, and while I do notice maybe some slight initial similarities, I really think these two go off in their own directions in the dry down. And as you'll know if you've watched my full comparison video, I much prefer this one over K. While K leans more blue and woody, this one leans more sort of green and aromatic. This one has some old-fashioned tinges to it, harkens back to those fougères of the 1980s. So it's got some florals. Some might compare it to like the smell of, you know, classic shaving cream. So the most prominent notes in this one are going to be blood orange and pineapple in the top, and it's gonna dry down with some geranium and tonka bean. So the blood orange, which is a very sweet type of orange in the top, is mixed with some pineapple. And no, it does not smell anything like Creed Aventus. Sweet, slightly citric, fruity opening, but then it dries down with some tonka bean and some geranium. The geranium I find is very, very prominent in this. So that gives it a little bit of a minty floral accord. And the tonka bean gives it just a slightly sweet creaminess, slightly reminiscent of vanilla. However, I think there are a lot of other tonka-centered fragrances that are more similar to the smell of vanilla than this one. So while this does contain tonka, I don't think it leans too far towards the vanilla side of things. Now in the opening sweet, fruity citrus notes, you might think this is gonna be just another fresh summer fragrance, but it's not. Like I said, the geranium, the minty geranium mixed with the tonka, very prominent, and those notes give it a very kind of shavy cream accord in the bottom. So for that reason, I think, again, this one leans a little bit mature. I think a lot of younger guys might not like this one. Some will, a lot won't. But I think this is a very interesting fragrance here. Don't be fooled by the color of the bottle either, right? I think this leans more into green aromatic territory than it does into blue aquatic territory. Performance, above average. However, it's not beast mode, but that doesn't matter because it's very inexpensive. You can just reapply this throughout the entire day. Now, I really think this is quite versatile. You can wear this in formal occasions and also casual occasions. This one even, I would say, can be worn in almost any season. It's got the kind of sweet, creamy dry down that would make it great for winter, you know, cooler months. It's got the fresh, kind of citrusy, fruity opening, which makes it perfect for summer. L'Homme by Rocha. Number 7, Bulgari Man Wood Neroli. I love soapy fragrances. I love the accord of soap. Whatever notes come together to create a soap accord, I love it in every fragrance I've ever sampled. This is one of them. As you can tell by the name, it has Neroli in it. But the name I find to be a little bit misleading because I don't find it to be very woody at all. So the main notes we're gonna get in this are Neroli, bergamot, grapefruit, and some ambergris or ambroxan. Now this opens up with a beautiful, sharp, bitter orange, which is gonna be coming from the Neroli. Neroli, like I said, very bitter, very orange, and it has a soapy quality. So that's what you get in the initial opening here. However, I will say that the Neroli note in this does not develop completely. It almost feels like the Neroli kind of just stops developing before it reaches its full maturity, and then it's overtaken by some bergamot, grapefruit, and ambergris or ambroxan. But in the opening here, for the first while, the Neroli note is absolutely perfect. I love the smell of this, especially in the opening. Now, don't get me wrong, in the dry down, it still smells great. It just kind of starts leaning a little bit more into generic territory. But hey, that's fine because you know what? A lot of people don't like the note of Neroli. A lot of people find it just too sharp, bitter, a little bit off-putting, what have you. So people who might not enjoy the opening of this might really come to enjoy the dry down, because I find the dry down to this to be very, very similar to Dolce & Gabbana's Light Blue Eau Intense, which also has prominent notes of grapefruit and bergamot. However, the Neroli that this one does contain really just does it for me. I love it. A lot of times this one gets compared to Neroli Portofino by Tom Ford, and they do smell very similar, I will admit. However, the performance on this one is much better. I get over an hour projection at about elbow's length, and I get about 5 or 6 hours projection, which is above average, but it's still much better than Neroli Portofino by Tom Ford. So this one is not a powerhouse, but I think the smell is just absolutely great on this one. I highly recommend it. Bulgarian Man Wood Neroli. Number 6, Loewe 7 Cobalt. This one here is from the Spanish house Loewe, and if you've seen my full review of this one, you'll know that it reminds me a lot of Bleu de Chanel Eau de Parfum. However, this one does have its differences, and these differences are the reason why Bleu de Chanel Eau de Parfum is not in this list, but this one is. So the main notes we're gonna get in this one are black currant, ambroxan, and incense. Opens up with a very tart, juicy, almost sweet black currant note, which is a berry. It's a very tart berry. And that's mixed with some ambroxan, which is gonna remind you of the ocean, slightly salty, gives you that blue feeling, you know? And it dries down with some nice incense. Overall, this does remind me of Bleu de Chanel. However, Bleu de Chanel is a little bit more uplifting. It has more citruses. This one definitely goes a similar direction, but this one is darker. The incense note is turned up. The black currant exists, which replaces the citruses found in Bleu de Chanel. And this one here is a little bit more oceanic, I would say, than Bleu de Chanel. Awesome, awesome fragrance here, and also the performance on this one is better than on any of the Bleu de Chanels. I get almost 2 hours projection on this, and the longevity is 7 or 8 hours, depending on how dry my skin is that day, depending on what kind of environment I'm in as well. This one here beats Bleu de Chanel out of the water for me, and I say that as a lifelong fan of Bleu de Chanel. Well, more specifically, as long as I've been into fragrances, I've loved Bleu de Chanel, but I admit this is a superior fragrance. 7 Cobalt by Loewe.